Imagine this. A young medical student goes out for drinks with friends. He's seen on security cameras entering the bar. Hours pass. The night gets late, but when his friends leave, he is nowhere to be found. The security cameras at every exit show no sign of him leaving. His phone remains active but unanswered, and despite years of searching, he has never been seen again. This is the baffling case of Brian Shaffer, a man who entered a bar one night and seemingly vanished into thin air. Brian Shaffer was a 27-year-old medical student at The Ohio State University. He was smart, ambitious, and deeply loved by his family and friends. But life hadn't been easy for him. In March 2006, just a few weeks before his disappearance, Brian's mother tragically passed away from cancer. Though devastated, he continued his studies, leaning on his father and girlfriend Alexis Wagoner for support. On March 31, 2006, just before spring break, Brian and his friend William Clint Florence decided to go out for drinks to kick off the break. It was a Friday night in Columbus, Ohio. The plan was simple: bar hopping, a few drinks, a fun night out. Brian and Clint started at the Ugly Tuna Saloon, a bar near the OSU campus. They later met up with another friend, Meredith Reed, who gave them a ride back to Ugly Tuna for one last round before calling it a night. By 1:55 a.m., security cameras captured Brian standing near the bar entrance, chatting with two women. Then, just like that, he was gone. By Monday morning, Brian hadn't returned any calls. His girlfriend Alexis was especially worried. They were supposed to leave for a romantic trip to Miami that Monday, a trip Brian had been excited about. But when she called his phone, there was no response. Worried, she called his father, Randy Shaffer. Together, they filed a missing persons report. Police immediately reviewed security footage from the Ugly Tuna Saloon. The cameras clearly showed Brian entering the bar at 1:15 a.m., and at 1:55 a.m. the cameras recorded Brian standing near the entrance, talking to two women. But what happened next defied all logic. Despite reviewing hours of footage, police could not find a single clip of Brian leaving the bar. He had simply vanished. How does someone enter a bar but never leave? This single question drove the investigation. Police came up with a few possibilities. Did he leave through another exit? The Ugly Tuna Saloon had a back exit, but it was reserved for staff and emergency use only. This exit led to a construction site. If Brian had wandered out, he could have fallen into dangerous debris or injured himself. But here's the problem. The cameras covering the back area showed no sign of him. There was no trace of Brian's body in the construction site. If he had been injured, someone should have found him. So if he had left, how had no camera captured it? Was he murdered inside the bar? Some theorists suggest that something happened inside the bar. A fight, an argument, or an accident, and someone covered it up. However, the bar wasn't that big. If something violent happened, someone would have seen or heard it. The bar wasn't privately owned. Staff, bartenders, and other guests were present. There was no suspicious activity reported. No physical evidence of foul play was found. Did he run away voluntarily? Could Brian have left his life behind? Some believe that, grieving his mother's death and facing the pressures of medical school, he may have vanished on purpose. However, he had just booked a vacation with Alexis. He had money in his bank account. None of it was withdrawn. His phone and credit cards were never used again. His family insists he would never disappear without contacting them. If Brian had walked away, how had he gotten past all the security cameras? Was he abducted? One of the most terrifying possibilities is that Brian was kidnapped or met with foul play after leaving the bar. Here's where things get strange. Alexis called Brian's phone repeatedly for months. It always went to voicemail, until one day. On September 6, 2006, 6 months after his disappearance, her call rang once before going dead. Could this mean the phone had been turned on? The Smiley Face Killer theory. Some believe Brian was a victim of a serial killer gang known as the Smiley Face Killers, responsible for mysterious drownings of young men across the U.S. However, Brian's body was never found, making this theory uncertain. Over the years, dozens of leads have surfaced, but none have led to Brian. In 2018, a shocking discovery. In Mexico, a homeless man was found who bore a striking resemblance to Brian. Photos circulated online, fueling speculation. But after DNA testing, it wasn't him. In 2020, the Face Aging Project, the Ohio Bureau of Investigation, released age-progressed images showing what Brian might look like today, hoping it might generate new leads. Still, no new breakthroughs. In 2022, tragic family loss. Brian's father, Randy Shaffer, never stopped looking for him. In 2008, Randy tragically died in a freak accident when a tree fell on him during a storm. At his funeral, an anonymous condolence message appeared online that simply read, "To Dad, love Brian." Could this have been a cruel hoax? Or had Brian himself sent the message? To this day, the identity of the sender remains unknown. The disappearance of Brian Shaffer remains one of the most baffling missing person cases in history. How did a man vanish without a trace in a crowded bar? If he left, why did the cameras not capture it? If he was taken, how did no one see or hear anything? And why, 18 years later, is there still no concrete answer? Some mysteries stay with us forever. If Brian Shaffer is out there, maybe one day he will return. But for now, he remains the man who vanished from a bar.